Good morning, everyone. This is Sam Allred. I bring you greetings from my home office in Heber City, Utah, where I'm at this week. It's just a beautiful day. Thank you for joining us. I show it's the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and begin. Thank you for joining me. This is an introductory webinar on a program that I've teamed up with Gordon Crater, a dear friend for decades, to teach on change management. It's called Leading Positive Change. I've got 36 slides, and I'll go through them in approximately 40 minutes to give you a good understanding of what this program is and who it might benefit and what the design of it is and so on. Let me just kind of start with an introductory slide to kind of set this up. We get this privilege with Upstream Academy, and I really do consider it a privilege. We work with close to 500 firms across North America, and what we see in all of them is a desire to change, improve, get better. No one has ever told us we just want to stay exactly the way we are. All of them see changes coming towards us. I don't think there's a managing partner I have talked to in the last year or two that hasn't seen just a wall of change, significant change coming to our profession, and knowing that we've got to go through it, we've got to climb the mountain, we've got to be successful, or we're going to be far less effective than we've been in the past. What's been an interesting observation for me personally, and I think for our team in probably the last 2 decades, is that in a sense, to us, effective leadership almost always comes down to, can you leave a trail or a wake or a path of positive results? But by virtue of what the leader or leaders are doing, do they leave a wake behind them of positive results? And that to us at the end of the day has really been the biggest litmus test on whether or not the leadership has been effective. So we've got all this change coming to us, and I want to begin by just stating what I believe to be an absolute fact, and that is change in any firm is hard, it's difficult. And as it says, so just ask anyone who's tried to lead it, and they realize how difficult it is. Almost every major consulting group or think tank has done studies on what the effectiveness of change is, how many change initiatives are successful and how many are not. And studies show that 70% of all change efforts fail, whether that's McKinsey or Bain or Boston Consulting Group or Harvard or wherever. It's almost consistent that we're right at 70% of failure. Well, Gordon Crater and I kind of did our own research. We started to look at firm after firm. We looked at all their major change initiatives. We gathered a pool of 50 common change initiatives. I'll share some of those with you as I go forward, that we studied. And it's at least a 70% failure rate. I don't know that that was shocking to us because of all these other studies that have always been out there, but I will share in just a few slides what was shocking to us with the research that we did. But with 70% failure rate on change initiatives, this means that almost every single one of those change initiatives begins in approximately the same way. Great anticipation, hope and desire and expectations of what's going to happen and why and how it's going to be a positive for the firm. And somewhere along the way, the excitement turns to frustration, and the desired change seldom occurs, at least in the way that everybody had hoped that it would when you begin the change initiative. And I would ask you to consider, what's the impact of a 70% failure rate on change initiatives on everybody across the firm and on the firm's culture? Because I think firms pay a great price when they start journeys they can't complete. And that's certainly been one of the cases with change initiatives. So as Gordon and I studied 50 common change initiatives in and across our profession, we were looking just at accounting firms at that point. Let me share one of the things that was most surprising to us. And that was this, that in many cases, and I could say really, probably truthfully, in most cases, the strategy behind the change was absolutely sound. And whatever they were wanting to do was in all likelihood one of the best things they could do for the firm and for everybody in the firm. In other words, everybody would benefit if they executed the change. The timing was right. They selected the right thing. The communication, well, not perfect. It was good. It was solid. The plan in place, the process, the steps were solid. That was probably the biggest shock. That even with all of those stars lined up, there was still at least a 70% failure rate. In some of those change initiatives, it was much, much higher than that. So here's what the end result is of the study. The majority of the failures, more than 70% of the failures, were due to people-related things, not process-related things. Employee resistance to the change, and by the way, that could be outward, it could be inward. It could be somebody that literally in every meeting where the change initiative is discussed nods their head in approval. If it's more formal, raises their hand to show commitment and support, and then goes back and does nothing to embrace the change, goes back and does exactly what they've been doing. That alone, in many cases, caused changes to be far more of a failure than a success. Leadership behavior that obviously didn't support the change and didn't want, in a sense, their cheese moved and something changed in their almost perfect world of how things were working for them. So in other words, most change failures were not process failures. They weren't because you had the wrong steps or you left some critical steps out. Even in some cases, they were all people failures. They were these kinds of things. Firm members at all levels, the rank and file, who were securely anchored in the status quo. Hey, if it's always worked, why not stick with it? You know, it's the person that says, in 1958, we thought about changing this, and that was a mess then, and why do it now? So many people that were just securely anchored where they were. Firm leaders, note the words, who give grudging compliance, not spirited commitment to change initiatives. And you can, as I've always said, you can spot grudging compliance about 100 yards away. A firm culture, and this perhaps was one of the biggest culprits, a firm culture, and I would say that using Patrick Lencioni's phraseology, a firm culture of artificial harmony that keeps individuals from voicing their honest concerns and engaging in open, honest dialogue. And instead, there's a little bit of the browbeating to say, look, as leaders, we've studied this. As leaders, we know this is the right thing for the firm. As leaders, we know if we don't do this, we're going to be impaired in a negative way. This is the right thing. Now's the right time. We need you to step up and do it. And there was never a culture that said, please tell us what your honest concerns are. Tell us what your fears are. Tell us what your worries are, and let's talk them through, or let's create in the plan ways to offset them. That wasn't the culture at all. It was more, let's just tell you what we need to do and why. Please, we need you to buy in. Everybody get in the seat, man the oars, and row in the same direction. And it didn't work. A culture that fosters a genuine fear of failure. And it's interesting, our study showed over and over again that the failure was higher at the partner level than it was at the staff level. And that was a bit surprising in our study. And something we share in some depth within this workshop. These are the reasons why it was failing. So if I took just one example, and again, we studied 50 of them, but I'm going to take one here that literally every firm in North America, maybe the planet, has tried to implement. But by the way, let me surprise you a little bit. This particular endeavor, hey, let's get rid of our worst clients. That'll ring a bell with everybody listening. Let's get rid of our worst clients. That might shock you. That had the highest failure rate. Well, there was one other one that was a bit higher, but it had almost the second highest failure rate of any of the 50 that we studied. 92% failure rate. Let me tell you why this is such a shock. Because the change initiative, as it says on the slide, makes absolutely complete business sense for a host of reasons. Here's just 4 reasons, but look at you could probably articulate 15 reasons why it makes sense, business sense, to get rid of your worst clients. Here's just maybe the top 4. The clients put a pit in the stomach of everybody that has to deal with them. You just, when you see an email, when you see the name on your calendar, when you miss an email or miss a phone call from them, and you've got that pit because you don't like it. You don't like your interactions with them for so many different reasons. They don't treat you well. Number two, they undervalue our services. They treat every single invoice we send them like an invitation to a debate. And at some point, people on the team don't want to log all their hours. They don't want to put them down. They don't want to bill them because it just makes the debate bigger and hotter. They live in quadrant one. That's a Covey, Stephen R. Covey term, and that's where everything is urgent and everything's important. That's because they can't plan ahead. They don't get into quadrant two. It takes great discipline to get into quadrant two where things are important but not urgent. Planning, preparation, values, clarification, prevention, processes, all process improvement, all those things are in quadrant two. It takes great discipline to work in quadrant two. They don't have discipline. So they live in quadrant one where everything's urgent and everything's important and it all devours our energy. And anybody that works with them has to get into that quadrant to work with them, and it wears us out. Fourth reason, they're demanding and often the highest risk. They throw everybody under the bus. Everybody's an idiot that's ever tried to help them and it hasn't worked out. And they've burned a lot of bridges. And when we work with them, we only know it might be a matter of time till we're the next bridge that goes down in flame. There's so many reasons. Those are 4 out of maybe 15. And so it makes complete business sense. So here came the question to us that was probably somewhat of a shock. If it makes such good business sense to remove the worst clients, and if it would be in the firm's best interest to do so, why in the world would we have a 92% failure rate with something that makes such good sense? And when we studied what firms were trying to do, and we're not faulting them, they did logical things. They put together in great detail, here's the steps we're going to follow, and the steps really made sense, but they spent too much time of their time, almost all of their effort and time, on the steps we're going to follow, and too little effort on the people side of the issue. Here's the common steps. You know, you can throw in a few or whatever, but they all kind of fall within a stone's throw of this. Management really believes this is the right thing to do, which by the way, every single change initiative management believes in, or you wouldn't do it. That's a logical statement. Management then convinces the partners, this is just right. For 15 reasons, this is the right thing to do. See the wisdom of it. Buy into this. Don't be difficult. This is the right thing for the firm. Trust us here. The criteria for the D-level clients is identified. Maybe let me say something else. We also say to everybody, this is going to be way better when we do this. We're going to be a better firm. We're going to be a happier firm. Everybody's not going to have this angst and this pit in the stomach. We're not going to have the risk that we have right now with challenging, litigious-based clients. But we don't tell them this is going to be painfully hard. We're going to go down before we ever go up, because all change initiatives go down before they go up, and we're going to have you recognize how challenging it's going to be, and we'll be checking in with you and talking to you and identifying where we are at different points. We kind of miss that a little bit, to be very honest with you. We identify the criteria, we apply it to the clients. Partners are expected to remove the D-level clients, and they're given, in most cases, a reasonable period of time. Most firms I've seen, it's 1 to 3 years. It's not like do it in the next weekend. So it's logical time period, and then there's very few bus stops for bad clients. In fact, I'll share this as an interesting observation. For those firms that had some success, and certainly individuals had some success, there was at least a portion of those success where the clients fired us, but we counted it as a bus stop for a bad client. I'm not joking when I say it was a 92% failure rate, and that was probably one of the biggest shocks for something that makes so much business sense to do. And so the takeaway from this, one of the takeaways for us, if you only look at the process, the steps you're going to take, and the communication that you want to give to everybody, then you're going to fail to help everybody in the firm understand the why, what, and how of the change, and be able to talk through the true, honest concerns that people have, and find ways to help them grapple with those concerns, you're going to see more failure than success, no matter how great your steps are. So when focusing on successful change initiatives, place equal emphasis on the steps, the process, and on the behavior, how people behave in pursuit of the results. And that's certainly one of the big emphasis of the workshop. This Leading Positive Change workshop is to in-depth talk to you about how exactly you do that and why it makes a difference to spend at least half of your time on the people side of the equation, the behavior side of the equation. So bottom line, what this is all about is just a statement and a belief that we can really help you in a significant way improve the success of all change initiatives within your firm. And we put this into a workshop that we've called Leading Positive Change. And let me just give you an overview of the workshop. The primary purpose of it is to help the firms that attend learn how to achieve better results in leading positive change within their firm. Really understand the science, if you will, of change and how we need to approach it, and specifically how we need to approach our people with change so they really get it and they really understand it. So a program overview. It's a 2.5-day workshop. It's going to be held December 12th, 13th, and 14th. We're out by the airport in Chicago O'Hare, not far from the airport. So when we say Chicago, it's not downtown. We tried to make it easy to get in and get out. It's going to be at the Hilton Rosemont, which is right there 5 minutes or less from the airport. When I say 2.5-day workshop, the first day, the 12th, we begin at 8 a.m. Breakfast is from 7 to 8. We begin at 8 a.m. and we go till 6 the first day. The second day, we do the same thing. The third day goes from 8 to noon. So that's what we mean by a 2.5-day workshop. They're pretty full days, and it really is a workshop. Then there's going to be a follow-up conference call. We'll actually pick the date and the time when we're all together there in Chicago in December. But sometime in the spring, we really do want a follow-up. We plan for it to be a conference call that everybody would participate in. We'll do a survey ahead of time to gather some data, to see what questions, to see what stories you want to share. It'll be like this, a webinar, but we'll be able to open up the phone lines for certain individuals to share thoughts or questions or whatever, or chat them in. And it will be less about training and more about feedback. What did you learn? What did you get? What questions do you have? What insights do you want to share? That will be a 1 hour sometime in the spring of 2019, sometime after, obviously, April 15th in 2019. We'll pick the day and time at the workshop. Who should attend? We're really strongly recommending that firms identify, not just for this workshop, but for themselves, a change management team. The interesting thing is the last time we taught this, and I'll share this in a little more depth as we go, as we went through a really holistic approach, a very defined approach to how you lead change, the second time through, everybody there says, man, I get it. I understand it so much better. Well, the idea is to get a team of people that really learn to understand how you lead effective change, how you have the dialogues, how you look for those who might be the passive resistors, what you need to do about that, how you identify change agents throughout the firm and properly train them and empower them so they can really help with the change, how you need to communicate it, tools to follow. And so we're looking at a team. In most firms I've talked to one-on-one, it's going to be a team of somewhere 3 to 5, 3 to 6 people, somewhere in there. There's no magic number, but this is not a workshop where we're saying bring every partner necessarily to it. It may not make sense. We would ask you to choose wisely. By the way, it is limited. It will not be more than 50 people. It is a workshop. And for Gordon and I to teach it effectively, we need to teach it like a workshop, not teach it like a conference. And it's very work-oriented. We sit you in teams. There's 3 different seatings, 1 each day. And your team that you bring will not be together the entire time. And there's some wisdom in that, by the way. They will be together for one of those days. They'll be together likely for day 2. and I'll show you the agenda in just a minute. We'll go through that together, but it will be 50 people maximum. So we recognize from the outset that if firms are bringing, say, on average 5 people, there are likely only 10 firms in this one, and we'll be doing more sessions. We're actually doing 3 sessions this year, but 2 of them are tied up in firm associations have taken those. Next year, we hope to have a few more open enrollment ones than we do this year. It would be individuals in your firm that are very professional, that are in a position to lead change in your firm for likely the next at least 5 to 10 years. So for that reason, we don't expect a whole team, no offense, a whole team of baby boomers to come. We don't expect that. We would think that probably if you go back, I'm going to go back just for a second, you go back and look at this picture, look at the age of the people in that picture, that's probably what we look to see the team. You'll likely have one baby boomer. We're not setting the specifics. We're just giving thoughts and ideas, and some younger partners and a mix of males and females, and those that represent leaders within the firm. That's probably what we'll see. Those who listen before they speak, who are very professional, that others admire, those who have really strong EQ skills, people skills. And for sure, there ought to be some younger partners represented in that group so that they can be in a role and a position to not only interact with those of the youngest generation, millennials, and those following them in the workforce, which are so many of our people now, but also that they'll be in a position to lead the firm 10 years from now and understand and really learn these principles that'll be so vital for all of the changes coming to us. So let me go through some key elements very quickly. The experienced instructors are Gordon Crater, who served for a number of terms as the managing partner of Plant Moran, and myself, Gordon and I have been dear friends for over 20 years now. I have the utmost respect for him, and I have the utmost respect for that firm and how they lead change within that firm. They really get this and understand this, and for that reason, he's the one I sought out, and we sat down, and both were very excited to put this together and spent the better part of a year developing this. We'll be the instructors for that. We take a very holistic approach to change. We love process, and so you'll notice there we call it the process of change. We love process and believe in it. But man, you've got to work the people side into this, or it's just absolutely going to fail. So we follow a distinct process. It's a 6-step process. It's benefit assessment, barrier assessment, what stands in the way, and largely what stands in the way as you deal with your people. What are their barriers to this change? What constitutes moving the needle? What constitutes having success and making progress with this change initiative? All change initiatives, whether they're subjective or objective, have dials that need to be moved, and it's important and vital to identify those dials so you know when you're making progress and what constitutes progress. Action plan. All important change initiatives need an action plan, and everybody needs to know exactly what's expected and when. Communication plan development, and then of course a lot of discipline to have success with it. That's kind of just the core, but there's a lot to that. But we'll be teaching that. There'll be a tool set with that you'll use. Here is the agenda. You'll notice in blue on the left-hand side, there's 3 different seatings. I alluded to that. It's a wonderful chance to meet your peers and interact with them, those who are part of change management teams from other firms across the profession. You'll have a chance to sit with them a couple times, and certainly at some point you'll be with your own team. Again, likely day 2. Day 1, after the introductions, we start with 10 key principles of effective change. Just vitally important things to understand that if you do it right, you'll have much better results. If you mess up any of those, you're going to have challenges, and so many of the challenges exist because we're not adhering to those principles. We're going to discuss in way more depth than I just tried to cover rapidly in my minute per slide approach why change efforts have failed and exactly where the failures have come. We're going to talk about how you create a culture for change. Are there some specific things you can be doing on a regular basis? And by the way, the answer is yes, a profound yes, to create a culture that's more likely to embrace change than fight it. Yes, there are some specific things that you can be doing on a regular basis to create a culture that will more openly embrace change. And I've drawn heavily on Gordon and what they've done with Plant Moran to really create that culture. What's been amazing to me is you create it with a culture with a large firm like that, not just a culture that you can effectively create with a small firm. They're 600 million and they've created this culture across their firm. We're going to teach how you measure change. Again, that component of how do you measure the dials to change, whether it's objective or subjective, to know what needs to move in order to have success and change. And then the whole afternoon of day one, we will lead you through the change process. I'll just say exactly how it works, because you'll notice the second day we're going to do problem solving round 2. We will teach you the change process at your team. Teams will be, roughly 6 or 7 people in a table round. At your team, you will look in the back of the workbook and we will show you the 50 common change initiatives that firms have tried to take on. Pick any one of those you want or pick your own. You'll be given a certain period of time to agree in a team of 6 or 7 which one you want to take on. And then you're going to go through the change process as if your team at the table was going to lead your firm through that particular change that you've picked. We don't care what one you pick. We've got 50 of them in there. And they're very common. You'll get them and understand it. And pick whatever one you want. We've organized them by areas of discipline, which one are internal, which one involves your people, which one involves clients, which ones are business development oriented, whatever. Pick whatever one you want as a team. But then you will actually go through that, and I'll jump back to it, this process of change with the tool set and identify what are the benefits if you were to make this change, what are the barriers that stand in the way, what constitutes for this particular change the moving dials, what would be your action plan and how would you communicate it. And then you will have a chance to present that to everyone else. And they will, for that period of time, act as members of the firm, and they will give you honest feedback, critique, thoughts, ideas, concerns, questions for what you presented to them. You will then go back as a team and say, okay, given what we've heard, what changes would we make? That's what I was sharing, that the last time we taught that, those that went through that, the second day, you'll notice at the end we do that again. The second day, everybody to a person says, man, we get this so much better. We understand better how to think and act. And our thought is, when you get a team that will be together for, again, 5 to 10 years that could be leading changes in the firm, they will really get so much better in how they lead change. And we will teach in 2.5 days the things they need to know to start them on that journey. Day 2, we talk about danger of passive resistors, those who have done more to derail change than anyone else, how to spot them and how to deal with that. How to select what to change. There's always so many things. How do you select and how much change can a firm really take on at one time? How to really develop and enable change agents at all levels throughout the firm, and what really is the best way to communicate it. Because one of the challenges with communication, I always love the quote from George Bernard Shaw, that said that the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it's occurred. We think sometimes just by talking about it, we've really effectively communicated, and in many cases we haven't. So we'll be talking about that in day 2 towards the afternoon. Day 3, which is a half day, gentle pressure, relentlessly applied. That's that disciplined nature of how you keep moving forward in change. We'll talk about the importance of how you celebrate change and why. You create an incredible culture of success by celebrating the changes you've made, and you give confidence to people that you can make changes. Then Gordon and I actually are going to give our individual take, well, it'll be collective at that point. What are the top changes firms really need to make? If you want to be highly successful, highly profitable, thriving in the future, what are the specific changes you need to make in the order of those changes? And then we'll provide some closing thoughts. And as we have always done in all of our workshops with Upstream, we'll gather your golden nuggets. What did you get from this? We'll take copious notes throughout the 3 days. We'll take them on the data display, the screen, so that you can see our notes, and they'll be your notes when we're done, so that you can focus and participate. And one of us will be constantly taking notes for the group, so that you'll have those notes to be able to go back and use with as a change team, and you'll give us input what you want in those notes. just quickly then, it's highly interactive. I've kind of shared that. You'll be networking with your peers. At much of the workshop, you'll be sitting with different people outside of your individual team, as well as, again, having an entire day to sit with your team and work on this, to really collaborate on solutions on really common firm issues. You'll look at that list of 50 and think, man, we've tried many of these. We've talked about most of them. There'll be common changes that you'll see, and every one of them has a different degree of failure, but collectively it's been 70%. We will talk about the key principles of effective change. Again, a principle, as it says, is a tenet, an anchor. It never changes, an enduring truth that guides you in how you do things. And good things happen when we follow good principles, sound principles, and bad things happen when we don't. And we've learned through our experience that there are certain key principles that are associated with how you lead positive change. And this will just give you a glimpse of the 10 that we'll cover, but we will go through these in depth. I'll just read them quickly. Survey large fields, cultivate small ones. That's again, the warning of taking on too many things. Having success early and building on it. Not expecting immediate buy-in. One of the great challenges that we've watched over and over again is the leadership team will spend weeks, months talking about a change, and then they'll present it to their partner group and get frustrated when they don't buy into it in the first 20 minutes. And that's just not fair when you've had people that have been down in the trenches dealing with all the issues they have to share with them, here's our thoughts about why we ought to make this change, and not give them the appropriate time to really do the same thinking that leadership team has had. You get to celebrate what you measure. There's actually two parts in that: the importance of measuring and the benefit that if you measure properly, you get to make a celebration, and that changes your culture. Create a robust communication plan, and we'll talk exactly what we mean by that. It would shock you if this one wasn't there. Avoiding the strategy of hope in so many ways. We watch how hope is as I always say, a way better virtue than a strategy, and always falls to pieces a strategy on us. Remember, the fish stinks from the head is just a principle that if leaders will not buy into change, you will not have success with the change. You cannot make significant, successful change around the leadership group in a firm. We're talking partners at that point. Apply gentle, relentless pressure. Identify and enlist the influencers, and beware of unintended consequences. And that's always an interesting principle to share, and just share in depth. And so many of those 50 initiatives, what have been some of the unintended consequences when they haven't thought it through properly, and those things that have come back to really cause so many challenges and derailment with that. We started Upstream Academy in 2001 and have had since then this exact wording as an unconditional guarantee. It means exactly what it says. There's no hiding behind it. That's motivated us to do stuff at the highest level and not at a mediocre level. If you're not completely satisfied, we will, at your option, either waive your fee or accept that portion of the fee that reflects your level of satisfaction. That's just an unconditional guarantee. That, you know, that's David Maister's wording in his book, True Professionalism. We buy into that 100% and believe that when you hold yourself to that guarantee, you're committed to do something that will literally deliver results, because the risk for you will then be too high if you don't. And so we really believe that, and stand behind that guarantee, that this will be results oriented, and you'll see that and feel like with confidence you can now go lead change within the firm, in many cases in a very different way than you had thought and anticipated. There is CPE. It's just based on the time that we have it there. You can do the math, 8 to 6 each day, take out lunch, take out breaks, 8 to noon the third day, and I don't even know what number that comes up to, but whatever it is, we give out CPE for that period of time. We published before the investment. For each participant, it's $3,500. If more than one come from a firm, we certainly hope that they do. It would not be a very good workshop for one person, to be very honest with you. I think they'd be overwhelmed. How are they now going to lead this when they're the only ones that have heard it? It's really for a team. But for each additional person, it's $3,250. And then we have Upstream Academy Network. We've had it for almost since we began Upstream, and we have well over 100 firms, I think, that are in it now. And They pay $32.50 for the first person and $3,000 for each additional person from a team. And then just closing with this, and then we'll see what questions. There's some questions that are coming in now. Our biggest drive, our motivation as an organization, as a team, is to help firms move way right on the bell curve, as we say, become high-performing firms. That is absolutely our goal, our drive, our passion. We love helping firms get better. We think we've got an incredible track record to do that. And as Gordon and I sat down and talked about for decades working together, we sat down and said, okay, he knew when he was going to step down. He stepped down in July of last year as the CEO of Plant. And we knew in advance when that was coming. And so we sat down and said, okay, now's the time that we've talked about doing something. And literally we started with this on a piece of paper, nothing else. What do we think we could do that would be the most impactful thing that would help the profession? And we brainstormed a number of things. And when we came away after a significant period of time, we felt like this was it. That this would be, knowing how much change was coming to the profession and knowing how significant it was, how significant the changes are that we're going to face, we felt like this was the most impactful thing we could do. And, you know, part of that came from what he shared with me, what they've done for years within their firm to really ready themselves for changes of all kinds, and how much better they feel to face the changes coming today because of the prep work they've done for years. And so we began this work, and like I said, it took the better part of a year last year to develop this, and we couldn't be more excited about our chance to be able to teach it. Getting together on a calendar was far more difficult, finding open days for both of us, than it was to develop this. That seems to continue to be one of the challenges that we face. So let me go to the questions that you have that you've chatted in. What time does the workshop end on Friday? It ends at noon. So you would fly in on Tuesday night. We would start on Wednesday morning. Thank you, Kelsey. We would you'd fly in Tuesday night. We begin with breakfast on Wednesday morning, go till 6 o'clock on Wednesday, 6 o'clock on Thursday. No later than that. It could end a bit earlier. The last one didn't. It went till about 6. And we won't go later than that. And then we go Friday from breakfast again in the morning, and then start at 8 o'clock and go till noon. So you're able to catch a early afternoon flight out. And again, we are about 5 minutes at the Hilton Rosemont to the airport. Even on a Friday, it's really, really close. Sam said that some of the associations are doing the workshop. Which ones are they? One is Moore Stevens, and the other one is not BDO. I don't want to give that impression that the entire BDO network is doing it. The largest firms within the BDO network, I've led their managing partner roundtable group for now, I think, 11 years. And there's 13 of those firms, and they're doing that. And we'll have a full group in both of those. It'll be 50 people in both of those. So it's a small subset. If you belong to Moore Stevens, they're doing one. I don't know the dates right now, but it's in December as well. If I looked at the list of who signed on here, and nobody's in that managing partner roundtable group from the largest firms in BDO. They already know about this and have signed up for it, and theirs is at the end of November, last week of November, I think. So those are the other two groups that are doing that. December 5th through the 7th. Thank you, Kelsey, for Moore Stevens. That's when that group is doing it. I don't see any other questions. If you've got them, here is my email address. If you've got any specific questions, I will give you a very detailed reply, not just a cursory reply. It's as detailed as what your question deserves. And I'm around this week, and I can do that. If you feel like you want to call, I had one this morning with a firm that just wanted to talk through, knowing that I knew their firm well and knew their partner group, which ones they thought really would best fit this. And I didn't necessarily share anything with them that was different than I shared. You know, get somebody that's very professional, that wants to listen, that has a high EQ skills. What I think is challenging for somebody that's on a change management team, somebody that's wired that wants to talk first and listen second, is going to be a tough member of that team when you know that over 70% of the failures have come from people resistance to it. You got to be able to listen to that. You got to be able to open the doors. You got to be able to allow them. You know, one of the change initiatives we looked at is push work down. It's such a common change initiative. Push work down to the right level. Let's be more efficient and have everybody work at or above their pay grade. It makes so much sense. Why do we struggle with that? That one's got a high failure rate, by the way. Not as high as 92%. It's got a high failure rate. Well, then you could have a dialogue with people. Why are they hesitant about that? What are they worried about? What do we need to do to help them make that proper choice? You want to have people on the team that are willing to have and comfortable having open, honest dialogue and maybe even, yes, crucial conversations with people and have that skill. That's an EQ skill, not an IQ skill. And those kinds of people need to be on this team because it's going to be vital to the success that you'll have as a firm and having leading those change initiatives on into the future. Hope that was helpful. Please let me know if I can help you in any way. Best wishes. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.